I'm moving in with Grandpa to take care of him, my sister announced to the family. 3 months later, Grandpa called me confused, saying someone was emptying his accounts and he couldn't remember giving permission. I'm Daniel, 32 years old, male. And the day my sister announced she was moving in with Grandpa to take care of him, I should have trusted that pit in my stomach instead of clapping along with everyone else. Her name's Melissa, 29, and she's always had this way of turning the spotlight toward herself while pretending it's for someone else's benefit. Growing up, she was the selfless one, the one who'd offer to babysit cousins, bring grandma tea, volunteer to organize dad's tools. But the trick was always the same. Do a little, just enough to look like a savior, then quietly pocket the benefits. She got grandma's ring that way, got dad's old truck, even convinced our aunt to pay for her college books when she'd already dropped out. So when she sat there at the family dinner table, eyes wide and voice all soft, "I just want to make sure Grandpa's not alone in the house," I felt my jaw clench. Because I knew exactly what that meant. Control, access, proximity. She wasn't moving in to care for him. She was moving in to manage the narrative and, if I'm honest, I think I knew, even then, to manage his money. Grandpa, Henry, is 84. He's the kind of man who still wears flannel shirts starched sharp as cardboard and keeps a pocket knife in his jeans like it's the 1960s. He built half the shelves in his house with his own hands. He's proud, stubborn, and way too trusting when it comes to family. When Melissa offered to move in, his whole face lit up, like maybe he wouldn't have to face the silence after Grandma passed. He pulled her into a hug and said she was an angel. I kept my mouth shut. What was I supposed to do? Yell across the table that my sister was a parasite? That would have made me the bitter, jealous brother. And Melissa knew it. She sat back, smirking just a little at me while Dad patted her hand and Mom said she was a blessing. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Grandpa's house, his neatly stacked bills on the counter, the old cigar box he still kept in his closet where he hid emergency cash, his checkbook with the sloppy handwriting, and Melissa, moving in with her fake, caregiving voice, sitting at his kitchen table with that exact checkbook. But I didn't say a word. And that silence is what I regret more than anything. Because 3 months later, my phone rang at midnight. It was Grandpa. His voice was shaky, almost childlike. "Danny, someone's taking money out of my accounts. I don't remember giving them permission. Do you know anything about this?" And my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. When I got off the phone with Grandpa that night, my hands were actually shaking. He's not the type to get confused about money. The man balanced his checkbook every Sunday for 50 years like it was religion. For him to call me panicked, whispering like he was afraid Melissa might overhear, it told me everything. I asked him what exactly had happened. He said his bank had called about unusual withdrawals. 2,000 here, 500 there, transfers to an account he didn't recognize. He told me, I don't remember saying yes, but Melissa said she was helping with bills. Maybe I did? That maybe I did broke me, because I knew my sister. Melissa had this talent for wearing people down until they second-guessed their own memories. She did it to me when we were kids, telling Mom I'd broken a vase when it was her, or swearing I'd promised to loan her money even when I hadn't. She'd lie with such conviction you'd start to wonder if maybe you had forgotten. And now she was doing it to Grandpa. The next morning I drove straight to his house. His flannel shirt was buttoned wrong, his hair wild like he'd been pacing half the night. He had a stack of papers on the kitchen table, bank statements, notes scribbled in his shaky handwriting. Melissa wasn't home. I looked at the papers and my stomach twisted. She wasn't just dipping into his checking account. She'd gotten him to sign over online access to his savings too. Thousands were gone. The balance looked like someone had been scooping water out of a well. And yet, when I asked him straight out, "Grandpa, did you give Melissa permission to do this?" he faltered. He looked down at his hands, rubbed his knuckles, and said, "She said it was just easier if she handled things. My memory isn't what it was, Danny. Maybe I—" He trailed off. I wanted to scream. Not at him, but at her. Because I could see the manipulation all over it. She'd made him doubt himself so badly he couldn't even trust his own signature. When Melissa finally came home, she acted like she'd just run a marathon of errands for his sake. Grocery bags in one hand, her phone glued to the other. She saw me sitting at the table and her smile dropped. "What are you doing here?" That tone, like I was intruding on her house. Like she wasn't living rent-free in Grandpa's home, draining his accounts dry. I told her I needed to talk about the money. Her face shifted in an instant. Fake shock, then wounded pride. "Are you seriously accusing me of stealing from Grandpa? I gave up my life to take care of him. Do you know how hard this is for me?" Her voice cracked, just enough to sound believable. And Grandpa, poor man, reached out and patted her arm. Now. I know you're both just trying to help." That's when I realized Melissa wasn't just stealing his money. She was stealing his trust, his voice, his sense of reality. And if I didn't do something soon, there wouldn't be anything left to save. Don't forget to subscribe. The confrontation didn't end at Grandpa's kitchen table. It carried into the next week, then the next. Every time I came by, Melissa treated me like a trespasser. She'd roll her eyes, sigh dramatically, whisper loud enough for Grandpa to hear, "Here comes Daniel, accusing me again." I tried to get Mom and Dad involved. I thought stupidly that if they knew money was vanishing, they'd side with me. But of course, Melissa had already gotten to them. When I sat down with them, Mom cut me off halfway through my explanation. "Daniel, your sister has sacrificed everything to be there for Henry. Do you think she's living the good life in that creaky old house? She could have been out building her career." "Career?" I snapped. "She hasn't held a job longer than 6 months since college. What career are we talking about?" Dad jumped in, his voice heavy with that fake disappointment I'd been hearing my whole life. "You've always been jealous, son. Your sister actually steps up for the family. Meanwhile, you swoop in once a week and act like the hero." It was like being 13 again, blamed for everything while Melissa smirked behind their shoulders. I could practically feel her fingerprints all over their words. That night, I called Grandpa again just to check in. He sounded tired. "Melissa says you're angry with me, Danny, that you think I can't make my own decisions. I don't want to be a burden." Those words, a burden, shattered me. Melissa had him twisted up so bad he was apologizing for being old. The next time I came over, I didn't knock. I pushed the door open and walked straight into the living room. Melissa was on the couch surrounded by shopping bags, designer shoes, makeup boxes, clothes with tags still on them. Grandpa's checkbook sat open on the coffee table like a corpse on display. When she saw me, she didn't even flinch. She just smiled this cold little smile. "You're making this harder than it has to be, Daniel. If you'd stop interfering, Grandpa would be happier, and so would you." I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed the checkbook. She lunged for it, nails digging into my wrist, screaming like I just assaulted her. Grandpa shuffled in, startled, and she instantly crumpled into tears. "He's hurting me, Grandpa. He's trying to take your money away." It was like watching a crime scene staged in real time. My own sister, crying on command, making me the villain in front of the man I was trying to protect. And the worst part? Grandpa hesitated. He looked at me, then at her, torn and confused, like he didn't know who to believe anymore. I dropped the checkbook on the couch. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break through my chest. I realized then, logic wasn't going to save this. Melissa thrived in the chaos, in the theater of it. And unless I found a way to flip the script, I was going to lose Grandpa completely. After the staged crying fit, I knew Melissa had crossed into dangerous territory. She wasn't just draining Grandpa's accounts anymore. She was rewriting reality around him, around all of us. I started stopping by unannounced, just to catch glimpses of what was really happening. Every time, the house looked less like Grandpa's and more like Melissa's showroom. New furniture, new curtains, fancy coffee machine on the counter. And Grandpa, my flannel-wearing black coffee-only Grandpa, sat quietly while she poured him lattes in mugs that said things like, "Good vibes only." The man looked smaller, like the house itself was swallowing him. One Friday evening, I showed up and heard shouting before I even knocked. Melissa's voice, sharp and furious. "I said I needed that money, Grandpa. Do you want me to end up on the street? Do you even care about me?" When I stepped inside, Grandpa was hunched in his recliner, head down, while Melissa loomed over him holding a ripped bank statement. She spun on me instantly. "Oh, perfect. Daniel's here to play detective again. Why don't you tell him you don't mind me using the money?" Grandpa opened his mouth, then closed it. His hands trembled in his lap. Melissa grabbed the lamp from the side table and slammed it down on the floor. The bulb exploded, glass scattering across the carpet. She started sobbing so loud the neighbors could probably hear. "I give up everything for this family, and all you do is accuse me. Maybe I should just leave and let him rot alone." She stormed past me, still crying, and slammed the front door so hard the walls shook. Grandpa whispered, "Don't be too hard on her. She's just stressed." Stressed? That was her alibi now. Break lamps, drain savings, scream at an old man. But she was stressed. The next day, Mom called me. Her voice was clipped, defensive. "Melissa told us you barged in and tried to pick a fight. She's trying her best, Daniel. Why can't you support her?" I nearly dropped the phone. "Mom, she's screaming at Grandpa. She smashed a lamp. His money is vanishing, and you're worried about her feelings?" Dad cut in on speaker, his voice that same old, tired sermon. "Enough. If you can't get along with your sister, stay away. You're upsetting Henry more than you realize." That one stung. Because that was exactly Melissa's play. She wanted me painted as the disruptive one, the outsider, while she tightened her grip on Grandpa's world. That night, Grandpa called me again. His voice was frail. "Danny, I don't know what's happening with the money, but I don't want to make trouble. Please don't fight with your sister. It's too much." I sat there in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding with rage. Melissa had everyone convinced she was the martyr. Mom and Dad were blind. Grandpa was scared to death of rocking the boat. And me? I was the only one left who could see her for what she was. That's when I realized I couldn't keep playing defense. If I wanted to protect Grandpa, I needed to flip the script, and Melissa would never see it coming. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow, I didn't expect so many people to respond. I posted this thinking maybe a handful of you would nod along and tell me I wasn't crazy, but holy hell, reading your comments has been eye-opening. Some of y'all went straight to, "Call the cops, lawyer up, guardianship immediately." And honestly, you're right. I've been sitting here thinking I could reason with my family, thinking maybe if I just showed enough evidence they'd wake up. But reading how many of you instantly pegged Melissa as abusive, manipulative, even dangerous. It was like a slap, a good slap, because it confirmed what I already knew but was scared to admit. There were a few comments that really hit me. One person said, "She's not caring for your grandpa, she's isolating him. That's how abusers keep control." And that wrecked me, because it's true. Every visit I see Grandpa sinking deeper into himself, doubting his own memory, apologizing for existing. That's not care. That's erasure. Another person DM'd me something brutal but accurate. "Melissa isn't just after money, she's after the inheritance before he's dead." And yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Like she's trying to fast-track control over everything he's built before his hands are even cold. Some people told me to set up cameras, document everything. Believe me, I've started. I've got photos of the shopping bags, screenshots of withdrawals Grandpa doesn't remember, even a recording of one of her meltdowns where she screams about deserving the money. I'm building a case brick by brick. But here's the thing. Calling the bank or the police outright would just tip her off too early. And if there's one thing I've learned about Melissa, it's that she thrives in chaos, but only when she controls the narrative. If the ground shifts under her feet publicly, in a way she can't spin, she'll crack. So yeah, to everyone who said, "Go nuclear," don't worry, I'm working on something. It's going to be messy, loud, and very, very public. And when it happens, Melissa won't be able to cry her way out of it. I don't know if Grandpa will ever fully forgive me for what's coming, but I do know this. I'd rather have him angry at me than let him keep being drained until there's nothing left. Stay tuned. Once I made the decision, I felt calmer. Not less angry, God no, but focused, like all the noise had sharpened into one clear frequency. Protect Grandpa, expose Melissa. Step 1 was the bank. I couldn't just walk in waving accusations, so I asked Grandpa to let me take him there under the guise of helping him update his will. He agreed. He's still old-fashioned enough to believe in paperwork done face-to-face. Once we sat down with the banker, I gently asked about the withdrawals. The woman behind the desk glanced at Melissa's name on the account access and got cagey real fast. "I can't disclose details without authorization," she said, which I expected. But then Grandpa leaned forward, voice trembling, and said, "I don't remember giving her permission." That one sentence cracked everything open. The banker looked at me, then at Grandpa, then quietly slid us a printout showing weeks of transfers into Melissa's personal account. Thousands. Rent. Shopping. Even a goddamn spa membership. Grandpa just stared at the paper, eyes wide and wet. She told me it was for the mortgage. Said bills were confusing now. Melissa wasn't just stealing. She was laundering his trust into her lifestyle. Step 2 was documenting. I started recording every interaction on my phone. Melissa screaming, Melissa guilt-tripping, Melissa smashing another dish when I confronted her one evening and she realized Grandpa had given me access to the printouts. She shrieked at me in the kitchen until Grandpa shuffled in, shaking, and she flipped like a switch, hugging him, sobbing, "He's trying to turn you against me." Step 3 was public exposure. Melissa thrived in the shadows, in the tight circle of family where she could twist words and paint herself as a martyr. I needed to drag her out into the open. And the opportunity practically delivered itself. Grandpa's birthday was coming up. Mom and Dad had already planned a big family dinner at a restaurant to celebrate Henry and thank Melissa for all her sacrifice. Perfect. In the weeks leading up, Melissa got more unstable. She'd corner me in the hallway, hissing threats. "You're jealous, Daniel. You've always been jealous. If you keep this up, I'll make sure you never see a dime of what's coming." I didn't even answer, just hit record on my phone. By the time Grandpa's birthday rolled around, I had a mountain of evidence. Financial printouts, recordings of her rants, photos of luxury bags bought on his money, and one video clip of her standing in the living room screaming, "It's my turn to get what I deserve," while Grandpa flinched in his chair. I wasn't going to lawyers yet. No, not yet. This wasn't about court. This was about ripping off the mask in front of the very people who kept propping her up. So when we walked into that restaurant, I had a folder under my arm, my phone charged, and a plan humming in my chest. And Melissa? She had no idea her performance was about to implode under the spotlight. The restaurant was already buzzing when we walked in. One of those family-style places with wood paneling and candles on every table. Mom had gone all out, balloons and a sheet cake with "Happy 85th Henry" in bright blue frosting. Grandpa looked overwhelmed but happy, shaking hands, hugging relatives. And then there was Melissa, front and center, playing hostess like it was her event. She'd even worn a white dress, which somehow felt like a wedding rehearsal for the marriage between her and Grandpa's money. I sat down with my folder tucked under my arm. My chest was tight, but I felt strangely steady. Dinner started. Toasts were made. Dad stood up and said, "We just want to thank Melissa for all the sacrifices she's made for Dad." Everyone clapped. Melissa gave this humble little wave, blinking back fake tears. I wanted to throw my glass at the wall. That was the moment. I stood up. "I think," I said, my voice louder than I intended, "we should thank Melissa properly. Maybe even show her work." Melissa's head snapped toward me, her smile freezing. "What are you doing, Daniel?" she hissed under her breath. I opened the folder and pulled out the first bank statement. For those of you who don't know, Melissa hasn't just been taking care of Grandpa. She's been taking care of herself, with his money. I slapped the paper onto the table. Spa memberships, designer bags, thousands transferred directly into her account, all while telling Grandpa it was for bills. Gasps, chairs scraping back. Grandpa sat rigid, his eyes darting from me to the paper. Melissa leapt up, voice shrill. "That's a lie! He gave me permission! He doesn't remember, but he did!" I didn't flinch, just hit play on my phone. Her voice filled the room, crackling but clear. "It's my turn to get what I deserve." Then another clip. "If you keep this up, I'll make sure you never see a dime of what's coming." The room went silent except for her own voice damning her. Melissa lunged at me, trying to grab the phone. Plates crashed as she knocked over a tray. Someone screamed. And there she was, in the middle of the restaurant, hair wild, mascara streaking, shouting, "He's trying to ruin me!" No one looked at me. Everyone's eyes were locked on her. Grandpa's fork clattered against his plate. He whispered, but the room was so quiet, everyone heard it. "Melissa, how could you?" It was like watching her whole act collapse in real time. She froze, mouth open, then spun toward Mom and Dad. "You believe me, right? Right?" But even they couldn't save her now. Dad looked like he'd swallowed glass. Mom just buried her face in her hands. And me? I sat down slowly, finally breathing, as Melissa's carefully constructed world burned to the ground under the glow of a birthday candle. Update 2. Well, that blew up. Literally and figuratively. When I wrote my first update, some of you told me to go for the jugular at Grandpa's birthday. Others said I should hold off, get a lawyer, make it airtight. I read every single comment, and I know some of you will say I went too nuclear too fast. But seeing Melissa unravel in that restaurant, it was worth every second. The fallout was immediate. After she lunged at me, the manager asked her to leave. She refused, screaming that I'd doctored the recordings, like I've got a sound booth in my basement. They ended up calling the cops, not to arrest her, but just to get her out of there. Imagine being dragged out of Grandpa's 85th birthday dinner while still shrieking about how you're the family martyr. That image is seared into my brain forever. Afterward, people pulled me aside. A few cousins admitted they'd suspected something was off but didn't want to get in the middle. One of my uncles straight up said, "About damn time somebody stood up to her." Even Mom, who's been Melissa's biggest cheerleader since birth, couldn't meet my eyes. Dad mumbled something about not knowing the whole story, but the look on his face told me he knew exactly what had been happening. "And Grandpa?" he cried. Quietly, in the car on the way home. He kept shaking his head, saying, "I thought she loved me, Danny. I thought she was helping." Hearing that gutted me. But when we got back to his house, he handed me his checkbook and said, "I trust you. Take care of this for me." That nearly broke me too, but in a good way. As for Melissa, she's gone radio silent with me, but not with everyone else. She's been spamming the family group text with paragraphs about how I humiliated her in public and stole her future. One cousin showed me a Facebook post she made, basically calling me a predator who gaslit an old man to cut her out of the family legacy. The comments are a mix of strangers hyping her up and relatives staying awkwardly quiet. I won't lie, part of me feels guilty. Not about exposing her, but about how brutal it was. She wanted a stage, and I gave her one, but the curtain came down hard. Still, I keep remembering Grandpa whispering, "How could you?" at her. And then later, "I trust you." That's my compass. For those asking about legal stuff, yes, I've got a meeting scheduled with an attorney next week to look into guardianship and recovering the stolen funds. The recordings and bank statements are ironclad. If she tries to fight, she's going to bury herself deeper. To everyone who told me not to doubt myself, thank you. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm not crazy. And to the few who DM'd me saying I should have let it go because family is family. Nah, family doesn't steal your future while calling it sacrifice. Family doesn't smash lamps and scream at an 85-year-old man until he apologizes for existing. Family is the ones who protect you when you can't protect yourself. And right now, that's me for Grandpa. If I thought the restaurant meltdown would make Melissa back off, I was dead wrong. The very next morning, Grandpa's neighbors called me. They'd found trash scattered across his lawn, shredded paper, broken bottles, even some of his mail. Someone had ripped it right out of the mailbox and tossed it around like confetti. I drove over and found Melissa's car parked a block away. She wasn't even subtle. She just sat there in the driver's seat, glaring at me as I cleaned it up. That was the beginning of her campaign. She started showing up at Grandpa's house at odd hours, pounding on the door, screaming for him to give back her money. When I answered, she'd wail like I was kidnapping him, yelling loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Dad, he's controlling you. He's stealing everything from you. Half the time, Grandpa was too shaken to even come to the door. The other half, he'd sit in his chair, trembling, whispering, "Don't let her in." I called the cops more than once. They'd come. Melissa would turn on the waterworks. "I'm just worried about my father, officer. He's being manipulated." And they'd give me the whole family dispute, not much we can do speech. But I kept filing reports, building a paper trail. Then came the social media barrage. Melissa posted screenshots of random transactions from her account, not Grandpa's, claiming they proved I had stolen from her. She tagged family, old friends, even Grandpa's church. The comments section turned into a war zone. Half the people saw through her. The other half? They bought it. I got messages calling me a vulture, a thief, even a monster who preys on old men. One night, I came out of my apartment and found my car keyed from front to back. Deep scratches like someone had taken their time. And under the wiper was a note in Melissa's handwriting. "You'll regret this." I wanted to snap. I wanted to drive straight to her place, throw the evidence in her face, scream until the whole block knew who she really was. But then I looked at Grandpa, frail, quieter than ever, clutching his coffee cup like it was the only steady thing left. And I knew blowing up wouldn't help him. So instead, I doubled down. I kept every police report. I printed every social media post. I even saved the threatening note from my windshield in a plastic sleeve. Melissa thought she was scaring me into silence. What she didn't realize was that every tantrum, every smear campaign, every broken bottle on the lawn was another nail in the coffin she was building for herself. And by the time court got involved, she wouldn't just look unstable, she'd look dangerous. The court date came faster than I expected. Melissa had pushed so hard, police reports, social media smears, the chaos at Grandpa's, that the lawyer told me, "Honestly, she's handing you this case on a silver platter." We filed for guardianship and financial protection. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse with a folder so thick it barely fit in my bag. Bank statements, audio recordings, photos of her shopping sprees, police reports, screenshots of her Facebook rants. Even the note she'd left on my windshield, her handwriting carved in anger. Melissa showed up late, wearing sunglasses indoors like some kind of fallen celebrity. Mom was with her, holding her hand. Dad trailed behind, silent. Grandpa sat beside me, his hands trembling. But when the judge asked him to speak, he lifted his chin and said, clear as day. I didn't ask Melissa to take my money. She told me I was forgetting things. She made me doubt myself. Daniel's been the one protecting me. It was the first time he'd said it out loud, in front of her, in front of everyone. Melissa's face crumpled like paper. The judge didn't take long. Guardianship granted to me. Melissa barred from accessing any of Henry's accounts. Restraining order approved for both me and Grandpa. She lost it. Right there in the courtroom. Stood up screaming, "You can't do this. He promised it to me. It was supposed to be mine." The bailiff had to escort her out while she kept thrashing, wailing like a child who'd dropped her toy in the dirt. That was the last time I saw her in person. In the weeks since, she's gone quiet. No more notes, no more keyed cars, no more social media rants. From what I've heard, she's bouncing between friends' couches, burning bridges as fast as she makes them. Mom barely speaks to me, clinging to the idea that Melissa just lost her way. Dad, he actually called me last week, said he was sorry, that he should have seen it sooner. I don't know if I believe him, but it was something. As for Grandpa, the change has been slow, but real. The first time I paid his bills for him, he whispered, "Thank you for not making me feel stupid." That one sentence made all the fights, all the chaos, worth it. Sometimes I still think about the night Melissa first announced she was moving in, how everyone clapped, how she smirked at me across the table. If I'd spoken up then, maybe it wouldn't have gone this far. But I also know this. If I hadn't fought back when I did, she would have hollowed him out completely. His money, his trust, even his sense of self. Now, when I sit with Grandpa on the porch, sipping his black coffee the way he likes it, he'll sometimes pat my arm and say, "Your grandmother would be proud." And I believe him. Melissa may have thought she was entitled to his future, but I was fighting for his present. And that, more than money, more than revenge, is what matters.